Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm sure some of you recognize these famous personalities. World famous American comedians and actors, Jim Carrey and Robin Williams. Some of the most highly successful actresses who are also among the top earning ladies of Hollywood. Moving closer home to our very own Bollywood celebrities, Deepika Padukone and Jia Khan, and even our tragic superstar of Kannada cinema, the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, Vijay Siddhartha. Two of the most influential and powerful politicians in history who were instrumental in shaping their countries. The fittest and high achievers in the field of sports. The celebrated painter Vincent van Gogh and our own beloved queen of the magical Harry Potter series.
Can you guess what all of these people have in common? Yes, they've all suffered from one or the other type of mental disorder at some or the other point in their lives. The same mental disorders which do not discriminate based on age, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or political inclinations. The lack of understanding and stigma in the society regarding mental disorders is unfortunate and astonishing. Hence, the small attempt on our part to help you make you understand mental disorders a little bit better in the hope that some of your stories have a better ending. In my personal experience also, I have come across a lot of derogatory terms which are used when it comes to describing people with mental disorders. Say for example, a lunatic, or a whack job, crazy, weirdo, or even something as simple as lazy or unmotivated. But when it comes to a cancer survivor, the words used are strong, courageous, and bold. So where does this difference lie? One thing that we have found is probably because of the lack of objective evidence when it comes to mental disorders. The thing is that there are no specific blood investigation that says this is where the problem lies, or any particular CT scan or MRI which says this is where the lesion lies. And the unfortunate belief among the public is that if you cannot see it, it must not be true. What people fail to understand is that mental illnesses are as real as your physical ones. They are caused about by a dysregulation in the neurotransmitters in your brain. I understand that there are a lot of questions that are left unanswered when it comes to psychiatry and mental disorders. And one of the main reasons for it continues to be stigma. I'll give you one more example. When it comes to even my own colleagues at the departments, I've seen, for example, in the emergency room, say you've brought a patient who's sustained a road traffic accident and another who's attempted suicide through hanging or poisoning. I have seen people say to first choose the accident because that was accident, and the other one, which was suicide, is self-inflicted and the person chose to do it. That's what they say. What I want to say is nobody chooses to be mentally ill. Nobody chooses to be depressed or have a panic attack. The same way nobody chooses to have a fracture. In spite of all this, the stigma continues to loom large. And because of this, it's become like a vicious cycle. One more example I would like to quote is last year apparently, the number of deaths that happened due to breast cancer were 40 million. And when it came to suicide, it was 44 million. In spite of that, in the NIH, the budget allocated for breast cancer research was a whopping 650 million, but when it came to suicide and mental health, it was a mere 50 million. So where does the discrepancy lie? That's why this year's theme for the World Mental Health Day is a call for greater investments leading to greater access in the hope that we could find more targeted and specific cures for mental disorders. 1 in 4 people experience mental illness in their lives. Look around you. Somebody you know might be going through it right now and trying their best to hide it from you. When I said the statistics 1 in 4, I'm sure a lot of you thought, that's not me, that could never be me. But let me remind you something. Mental disorders can affect anybody. Being a psychiatrist, I myself am not immune to it. It could happen to me, it could happen to you or your loved ones. So please do not stigmatize mental disorders, which in turn does nothing but to ostracize them and traumatize them further. Even if you are the most well-educated and liberal person in this world, it is only natural for humans to be a little bit judgmental. But when that judgmental behavior crosses a certain threshold, it turns to prejudice and stigma. So that is where we need to stop ourselves. So the next time you come across a person who is mentally ill, instead of being derogatory to him or trying to be judgmental, just listen to them. And if you or your loved ones are facing through some struggles and are having difficulty adjusting to them, and you feel that you are not feeling alright, do not hesitate to reach out to a mental health professional. Remember, talking about your feelings does not make us weak, it makes us human.
Hi, my name is Kadambri Singh. I love to wear makeup. I like my eyes to be kohl-lined. I love the brightest shade of lipstick. I spend time in the morning getting ready to make sure that I look pretty, to make sure that I look good, to make sure that my face does not show what I feel inside. I am life of a party. My friends love to hang out with me. My friends share things with me because they feel that I listen and I understand. My team feels that I connect with them. I am a star performer at work. I love to eat food that is good. I binge eat at times. Now all this sounds normal. The only difference is what I feel deep inside. Even with thousands of people, even while pretending to be happy or cracking jokes, I'm all alone inside. I feel disconnected with every single individual that I interact with. I sometimes don't even feel that my life is real. I feel guilty to be alive. Have you ever tried acting? Acting is tough, isn't it? Now imagine trying to act from the minute you open your eye at the beginning of the day till the time you fall asleep, trying to fake emotions, trying to fake things, make things look real. Sometimes even just to smile looking at your daughter and smile to looking at your husband is all fake. Imagine living like that day in and day out. I feel guilty to live. I feel that there should be no reason why I need to be alive. There used to be a time I spent hours together, days at a stretch googling on how I could kill myself. All this, all this at the same time, living a life where nobody suspected anything. I might not be your standard person for depression, where people don't have baths for days together or don't eat food. I'm anything but that, but I'm everything and more. But then, over the last few months, I have been able to deal with these symptoms and these emotions with the medications that have been given to me. I had a stigma where I didn't want to get onto medications because I didn't want to be called a Looney Tune, a psycho, a crackpot, a drama buzz, as some people would probably want to call me, as somebody wallowing in self-pity. And medications have helped me. Not all of my days are perfect, but most of my days are good and help me go on with my day-to-day life. If you ever want to kill yourself, and I know at times when there is a situation at hand, that's the first response that comes to some of us, right? It is easier to be dead than to deal with whatever is coming ahead of me. Just wait for a while. Just call out to somebody who will just listen to you and shout out your thoughts. Maybe that will help. And after that, please make sure that you reach out to a doctor and take help, because these feelings to a large extent can be cured.
Suicide has become far more than just a public health problem. It is something that is slowly gnawing into our progress as a society, affecting every strata and almost every age group, from adolescents to the geriatric population. There is nothing more disappointing than to see a life with a lot of potential being rendered futile by suicide. What makes it more tragic is that suicide is one of the more preventable causes resulting in the loss of life. The fallacy of our culture has been that the talk about suicide or about addressing it has always taken a backseat. More often than not, it is brushed under the carpet. To add to that, there are queer beliefs that talk about suicide may encourage it, while on the contrary, it has been found that talking about suicide reduces the occurrence of suicide. I would just like to say that the need of the hour is to open ourselves as well as our communication channels to whoever is in need of help around us, to listen to them in a non-judgmental way, to not offer any unnecessary advice, and to help them seek appropriate care and support them. One of the other important factors is to be aware of the warning signs of suicide, which may range from drastic changes in mood, behavior, social interaction, and involving oneself in drug or substance abuse. Drug abuse is one aspect. The moment we hear about it, we become indifferent, apathetic to the individual, terming them as addicts, while conveniently forgetting the fact that the drug abuse itself may have been due to an underlying psychiatric problem. With regard to suicide, I'd like to say that if at this time we try to stay indifferent or apathetic, it is akin to standing still and watching as a fire burns around us. Thank you.
Suicide is the act of intentionally taking one's own life. The very mention of the word suicide evokes uncomfortable feelings in us. However, it is high time we leave our discomfort aside and keep the conversations moving around this highly preventable cause of death. We never give more than a passing glance to statistics, but the statistics of suicide should more than alarm us. Globally, 8 lakh people die due to suicide every year, and for every completed suicide, there are 25 attempted suicide and hundreds more with suicidal thoughts. In 2019, India lost around 1,40,000 people to suicide, which means that 35 Indians attempted suicide and more than 1 crore of our population were harboring suicidal thoughts. Suicide doesn't discriminate against anyone and no one is immune to it. It affects both genders, all religions, all age groups, and across all socio-economic strata. What makes people take this drastic step? Well, there is no simple answer for this. Various factors such as genetic, psychological, or social risk factors interact with trauma and a sense of loss to bring about suicide. Remember, suicide is not an illness, it is an outcome of certain circumstances. 70 to 80% of suicide is due to mental illness, and of this, 70 to 80% is due to depression. However, suicide is never an acceptable outcome for mental illness. From 2018 till this year, the theme for World Suicide Prevention Day has been working together to prevent suicide. This brings into highlight 2 key components. First is prevent. Suicide is highly preventable provided timely action is taken. And the word together implies that we need to work together to prevent suicide. That is, we need to collaborate. Suicide prevention strategies are divided into social, economic, policy reforms and those that are directly targeted to individuals. Some effective steps are removing stigma around mental illness, improving access to mental health care, blocking access to means of suicide such as pesticides and firearms, promoting responsible suicide-related reporting by media, and stopping the glorification of suicide and depiction of suicide as an acceptable response to crisis in movies and books. Suicide is often a cry for help, and everyone can be a key player in suicide prevention. Each one of us can make a difference as a child, a parent, a friend, or a colleague. You can raise awareness about suicide, educate yourself and others about the causes and warning signs of suicide, and help destigmatize suicide. So to the ones who know someone who is struggling with suicidal thoughts, reach out to them and lend your support. Reaching out is challenging, but the end result is often life-changing. To the ones who have lost a loved one to suicide, channelize your grief and your energy towards creating awareness for suicide so that no one else has to go through the same pain. And to the ones who are currently towing the line between continuing to fight the demons in your mind and ending it all, remember, suicide cannot end your pain. You can only pass it on to your loved ones. Remember, you are not alone. You won't always feel like this. And the bravest thing you can do is admit you need help and ask for it.
ನಾನು ನಮ್ಮ ಹುಡುಗರು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ವಯಸ್ಸಿಂದ ನಾವು ಚಿಂದಿ ಪೇಪರ್ ಆಯಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್. ಆವಾಗ ನಾವು ಬೀಡಿ ಸೇರ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸೀದಾ ಕೆರೆ ತಗೊಂಡೋದ್ವಿ. ಬೀಡಿ ಸೇದೋದು ಕಲ್ತ್ಬಿಟ್ವಿ. ಬೀಡಿ ಸೇದಿದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಏನು ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಬೀಡಿಯಿಂದ ನಾವು ಪಾನ್ ಪರಾಕು, ಚೈನಿಕೈನಿ, ಗುಟ್ಕಾ, ಮಾವ, ಬೀಡ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ನಾವು ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಹೊಡೆಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ವಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್. ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಈ ಥರ ಎಂಜಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಬರೋದಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮದು. ವರಮಹಾಲಕ್ಷ್ಮಿ ಹಬ್ಬ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಗೌರಿ ಗಣೇಶ ಹಬ್ಬ, ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾರಿಯಮ್ಮನಗರ ಜಾತ್ರೆ, ಆ ಥರ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಗಳು ಬರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಹೊಡೆಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ವಿ. ನಾನು ಅವಾಗ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಲೈಫಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೆ. ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಲೈಫಲ್ಲಿ 7th ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಏನು ಮುಟ್ಟಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಮಾಡಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಮ್ಮ ಹುಡುಗರು ಬೇರೆಯವರೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು, ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಹೈಸ್ಕೂಲಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ದಿವಸ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಸರಸ್ವತಿ ಪೂಜೆ ದಿವಸ ನಮ್ಮ ಹುಡುಗರು ಹೋಗಿ ನಾನು ನಮ್ಮ ಅಪ್ಪನ ಜೋಬಲ್ಲಿ ದುಡ್ಡು ಕತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರನೇ ದುಡ್ಡು ಕತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಅಪ್ಪ ಡೈಲಿ 10 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕೊಡೋರು, ಡೈಲಿ ಚೈನಿಕೈನಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಯಾಕೆಟ್ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ. ನಾನು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸರಸ್ವತಿ ಪೂಜೆ ದಿವಸ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಹೊಡೆಯೋದು ಕಲಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಕುಡಿಯೋದು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ವಿ. ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಕುಡಿತಾ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಯಾರೋ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ರು. ಅವ್ನು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು ದಿವಸ ಮೇಲೆ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಗಾಂಜಾ ಯಾರೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಗಾಂಜಾ ಅವಾಗ ಚಿಲಮಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಸೇರ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಸೇದಿದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡೋಣ ಅಂತ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನಾವು ಸೇದ್ಬಿಟ್ವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ಮಾನಸಿಕ ಸೆಳೆತವಾಗಿ ಕ್ರೇವಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತು. ಒಂದು ಸಿಗರೇಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಸೇದಿದ್ವಿ. 1 ಕ್ವಾರ್ಟ್ರು ನಿಶೆ ಹೊಡೆದಂಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತು. ಅರ್ಧ ಸಿಗರೇಟ್ ಸೇದ್ವಿ, 1 ಕ್ವಾರ್ಟ್ರು ನಿಶೆ ಹೊಡೆದಂಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾಯ್ತಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇಬ್ಬರು ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸ್ಕೋರ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ವಿ. ಅದು ಗಾಂಜಾ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗ್ತಾಯಿತ್ತು. ಎಣ್ಣೆ ರೇಟು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ, 100 ರೂಪಾಯಿ, 80 ರೂಪಾಯಿ, 60 ರೂಪಾಯಿ 1 ಕ್ವಾರ್ಟ್ರು. ಗಾಂಜಾ 100 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಪ್ಯಾಕೆಟು. ಇವಾಗ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಹೊಡೆದು ಕುಡ್ದು ಹಾಳಾಗಿ ಸಾಯೋದ್ರ ಬದಲು ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡೋಣ ಶೋಕಿ. ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ಕುಡಿದ್ರೆ ಬೇಗ ಸತ್ತೋಗ್ತೀವಿ, ಬೇಡ ಇದನ್ನು ಸೇದೋಣ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಊಟ ಸೇರ್ತೈತೆ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಿಶೆ ಹೊಡಿತೈತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾವು ಹುಡುಗರ ಜೊತೆ ಸೇರಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನಾನು ಹೈಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸೀದಾ ಇದು ಪೇಯ್ ಬಂಡ್ ಹೊಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ ಸರ್. ನಾವು ಹೈಸ್ಕೂಲ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಪೇಯ್ ಬಂಡ್ ಹೊಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಪೇಯ್ ಬಂಡ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್, ಸೈಕಲ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್, ಅದನ್ನು ಹೊಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಅದನ್ನು ನಾನು ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದನೇ ಜೀವಕ್ಕೆ ಅಪಾಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಹೈಸ್ಕೂಲಲ್ಲೇ ಮುಚ್ಚಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಎಣ್ಣೆ ತಂದ್ವಿ. ಫಸ್ಟು ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಹೊಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ತಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇವಾಗ ಗಾಂಜಾ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸಿ ಅವನಿಂದನೇ ನಾನು ತಿರ್ಗಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಪ್ಪ ಅಮ್ಮ ಹೆಂಗೋ ರಿಯಾಬಾಗ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರು. ಎಲ್ಲ ಗಾಂಜಾ ಸೇದೋದೆಲ್ಲ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡೋ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರೋ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇಡ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಎಳ್ದು ದುಡ್ಡೆಲ್ಲ ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿ ನೀನೇ ಹಾಳು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ನಾವು ತಿರ್ಗಾ ರಿಯಾಬ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಬಂದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ 4 ತಿಂಗಳು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೆ. ಹೆಂಗೋ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ರಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ದೂರ ಇದೇ ಥರ ರೂಮ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಒಂದು 5-6 ಜನ 7-8 ಜನ ಹುಡುಗರು. ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸಿಗರೇಟ್ ಕ್ರೇವಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸಿಗರೇಟ್ ಸೇದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸಿಗರೇಟು, ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಕುಡಿಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಗಾಂಜಾ. ತಿರ್ಗಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಮ್ಮನ ತವನೇ ಬಂದು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಹುಡುಗರ ಜೊತೆ ಸೇರಿ ಗಾಂಜಾ ಹೊಡೆದು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು 2-3 ವರ್ಷ ಕಲ್ದು ಇವಾಗ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಗಾಂಜಾ ದೊಡ್ಡವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡು ದೂರ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೆ.
We have come to use two terms very frequently, very easily, without thinking much about what those two meanings, those two terms mean. One of them is legend. We call everyone a legend. In a football match, if Messi has not scored and someone else has scored, he becomes a legend. In an IPL match, if Kohli and Gale haven't scored but someone else has scored, he becomes a legend. This is not the right use. The other word that we use very frequently without understanding its meaning is addiction. It's used everywhere. The movies use it as a masala script, the fathers use it to scold their children, teachers use it when the student is not reading well and uses a lot of mobile. Your boss will use it if you don't go to work for a few days. Politicians and police use it to hide their incapabilities. And the news media uses it for almost everything now. These are all useless uses of this word addiction. It is a very powerful word. Like being legendary has become a household quality now, being addicted has become a household sarcasm. And none of these are true. Let's stop calling everyone an addict who uses something or eats something more or falls in love every time as being an addict. Let us not confuse between what is procrastination and what is passion. Let us not merge between routine work and leisurely indulgences. Let us make and understand addiction that it is a different meaning. It is not a deliberate action, but it is an uncontrollable action. When we come out of the movie after watching Urta Punjab, let's not talk about opioids and lassi in the same breath with our Punjabi friend. Let's not talk about rasgulla and alcohol and falling in love in the same breath with a Bengali friend after watching Devdas. Let's understand addiction more seriously and what it is. It is a truly serious disorder, and it is disorder of a very serious organ, that is our brain. It is very difficult to treat addiction, prevent it, and to protect from it. But it can be done. It can be done if we understand what is addiction. In addiction, our brain circuits, that is a different circuit from one place to the other place in our brain, and the chemicals in it, they lose control over themselves and they start acting very weirdly, very bizarrely. And what happens in this brain comes out as the person unable to stop drink, craving for the drink, craving for ganja or addictive substances like that. It is not like when you had a 3-course meal and then you have dessert and then you start feeling good. That's not addiction. That's not how the addicted person feels like. It is when you have not eaten for weeks and then you get the first meal. Addiction is like that painful hunger which you have to stop. It's a fire burning inside you. If you don't eat for 7 days, what happens to your hunger is what happens to addiction. Addiction is not a week of drinking after you had a breakup or someone has a breakup. It is drinking after you have tried stopping yourself so many times but you could not. And you drink crying. You drink thinking that you are a loser. It is that urge in the body that is addiction. So only when we understand addiction, we understand it as an illness and not as a behavior as such, we can change our attitude towards it. Only when we understand addiction, we will think before we start alcohol, we start a cigarette, or we start drugs ourselves, or we push a friend in a party saying that take one more drink, it won't affect. We will be thoughtful to reduce our substance use and others. And when our friend who we pushed to start alcohol, when that friend becomes addict and then we lose contact with that friend deliberately, we will be more thoughtful before doing all this. We will be more thoughtful and bring the person for treatment. Only when we understand addiction, we will not hate the sinner, but we will hate the sin itself. Why is this important? Is it because we have more bars than more doctors, psychiatrists in India or mental health establishments in India? Yes, it's true. We have a lot of exposure to drugs, more bars, more alcohol. We have too few doctors and too few helping hands. That's a truth. But are we using whatever we have enough? Are we utilizing our resources that we have enough? Can we stand up every day in the morning, look into ourselves in the mirror, eye to eye, and say to ourselves that we have really done whatever we could for a person who is dependent on drugs? Can we say this on a personal level? Can we say this on a society level? Can we tell this as a public level? Have we really tried to help them? Whoever we may be, as a doctor, as a mental health professional, if you are a nurse, if you are a leader and a politician, if you are a follower, if you are a median person, if you are a politician, if you are a police, if you are a friend, if you are a parent, if you have a friend also, and overall if you are a human being, can you or will you be able to say that you have done enough? If that, there won't be a treatment gap of 90%. Treatment gap of 90% in substance, in alcohol dependence means that about 90% of people who are dependent do not get treatment. And that's not just because there are less hospitals. It's because we are complacent with it. We let them be like how they are. We have already agreed that they won't change. We have already accepted defeat, and our defeat makes them defeated. Do we do the same thing when we see a road traffic accident victim lying down on the road with one leg smashed, and if the person is crawling to reach a hospital, will we not help that person? Will we do the same thing when a person starts having chest pain and breathlessness and we sit in our own room thinking, let the person take his own decision, take his own time? Then why do we do it for addicts? Why do we stop helping them? Why do we stop trying to help them? Why do we think that they will become better by themselves and they will come? Of course they won't. That's the illness. The illness makes them blind. The illness makes them not put an effort. And when they do put an effort, the illness makes it low. The illness has made them blind. But why the illness has made us blind? Can we not do better? Can we not take addiction more seriously? And we take seriously about the persons who are suffering from it? It is our responsibility. Let's not start feeling happy about that we have helped for mental health situation by putting a tweet or putting a social media status. Let us think that we can do more than that. We can be more than just a tweet, just an Instagram snap, or just a social media presence. And we can do this if we understand what addiction is, how serious it is, and we won't misunderstand the people who are addicted to it. The theme of World Mental Health Day this year is that it should reach, the mental health care should reach everyone, and they write greater investment, greater access. Now this is not just financial investment. There are many other types of investment. We can invest our sweat and blood, we can invest our time, we can invest our efforts. And all of these investments will lead to a better access. Let's just not think that it's about money, it's about infrastructure. It is not. It is about each individual who can do a lot if they try. Only then we will be able to fight mental illness, especially addiction. Let us not be happy after putting a status at night and go to sleep. Let us wake up the next day and think what we can do today for those who need our help. Let us not go easy, let us not go gentle into that good night. Thank you.
So we have now reached the final part of the video. We hope that we have been able to spread a few hopeful insights and information regarding mental health. We would like to remind you guys that mental illnesses are preventable and they can be treated. With that, we leave you with a multilingual message from the alumni and also the postgraduates from the Department of Psychiatry from Sri Siddhartha Medical College. Thank you.
ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಆಲ್ಕೋಹಾಲ್, ಡ್ರಗ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಬಲವಂತದ ನಡವಳಿಕೆಗಳು ಪರಿಹಾರವಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕುಟುಂಬ, ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರು ಹಾಗೂ ವೈದ್ಯರು ಪರಿಹಾರವನ್ನು ನೀಡುತ್ತಾರೆ.
ಪ್ರತಿ 4 ಜನರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಮಾನಸಿಕ ಕಾಯಿಲೆ ಕಂಡುಬರುತ್ತಿದೆ. ನೆನಪಿರಲಿ, ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಮಾನಸಿಕ ಕಾಯಿಲೆ ಆಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ, ಆದರೆ ಯಾರಿಗಾದರೂ ಆಗಬಹುದು. ಎಲ್ಲ ರೀತಿಯ ಮಾನಸಿಕ ತೊಂದರೆಗಳಿಗೂ ಪರಿಹಾರವಿದೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ತಿರದ ಮನೋತಜ್ಞರನ್ನು ಸಂಪರ್ಕಿಸಿ.
मानसिक स्वास्थ्य दिवस मनाने का एक ही उद्देश्य है कि लोगों में इस बात का संदेह मिटाया जा सके कि हर मानसिक बीमारी पागलपन का लक्षण नहीं होती है और इसे किसी भी शारीरिक बीमारी की तरह दवाओं और बातचीत के जरिए ठीक किया जा सकता है। तो अगर आपके आसपास आपके मित्र या आपके परिवारजनों में से किसी को भी इस सहायता की ज़रूरत है तो कृपया उनको निजी मनोचिकित्सक के पास लेके जाएं।
നിങ്ങളുടെ പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവർ വിഷാദരോഗം, അമിത ഉത്കണ്ഠ, സംശയരോഗങ്ങൾ, അമിതമായ ലഹരി ഉപയോഗം, കാരണങ്ങളില്ലാത്ത ശരീരവേദനകൾ, തലകറക്കങ്ങൾ, നെഞ്ചിടിപ്പ് കൂടൽ, ഇങ്ങനത്തെ പല അസുഖങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നും നിങ്ങളുടെ പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവർ അനുഭവിക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, അവർ വലയുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അടുത്തുള്ള സൈക്യാട്രിസ്റ്റിന്റെ സഹായം തേടുക. ചിലപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങളുടെ സൈക്യാട്രിസ്റ്റിന്റെ സഹായം തേടുന്നതിൽ നിന്നും ഒരു ജീവനോ ഒരു കുടുംബമോ ചിലപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് രക്ഷിക്കാൻ സാധിക്കും. ഇതാണ് എനിക്ക് നിങ്ങളെ ഓർമ്മപ്പെടുത്തുന്നത്.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਮਿੱਤਰੋ, ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਬਾਰੇ। ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਕੀ ਹੈ? ਇਸ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਖੁਸ਼ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ। ਸਰੀਰਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਲਈ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਚੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਪਰ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਸਮੱਸਿਆ ਲਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਝਿਜਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸੋਚਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਦੌਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਮੱਸਿਆਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਆਉਣ, ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰਨ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਮਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ બહાર આવે ਤੇ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ પતા ਲੱગે, ਜਿਸ ਕਰਕੇ
તંદુરસ્ત જીવન માટે શારીરિક સ્વસ્થતા ખૂબ જ જરૂરી છે, પરંતુ માનસિક સ્વાસ્થ્ય વગર શારીરિક સ્વસ્થતા અધૂરી છે. લોકોમાં એવી માન્યતા છે કે માનસિક બીમારી એટલે માત્ર ગાંડપણ. સામાન્ય રીતે માનસિક બીમારીઓને માણસના સ્વભાવ સાથે સાંકળીને તેની અવગણના કરવામાં આવે છે. ક્યાં તો તેની જાણ હોવા છતાં મનોચિકિત્સકને બતાવવામાં લોકો શરમ અનુભવે છે. તે માટે વિશ્વ માનસિક સ્વાસ્થ્ય દિવસ નિમિત્તે હું એટલું જ કહીશ કે માનસિક રોગો બધાને થતા નથી, પણ કોઈને પણ થઈ શકે છે અને તેનો નિદાન સંભવ છે.
Wakal laina nare haiduna kiduna tumina leibiganu. Anatpa mafam amada Dr. Amaga amtang tanabiduna pugning wakal nungaina laina bahotnami.
सभी दोस्तों को मेरा आदाब। आज मैं जहनी बीमारियों के बारे में बात करना चाहूँगा। ये हमारी सकाफत की लापरवाही समझिए कि जहनी बीमारियों को इतनी तवज्जो दी नहीं जाती है जितना कि जिस्मानी बीमारी और जिस्मानी सेहत को दी जाती है। इसीलिए ये हमारा फ़र्ज़ बनता है कि हम हमारे आसपास के लोगों में जहनी बीमारियों को पहचानें और उन्हें सही इलाज की तरफ हिदायत दें।
বাকি রোগগুলোর মতোই মানসিক রোগও কিন্তু একটা রোগ, যেটা আমাদের সবার হয়তো হয় না, কিন্তু যে কারণে কিন্তু হতে পারে। পরিসংখ্যান অনুযায়ী প্রতি 4 জনের মধ্যে 1 জন করে কিন্তু মানুষ মানসিক রোগাক্রান্ত হচ্ছে। তো আপনি আপনার নিজের মানসিক স্বাস্থ্যের অবশ্যই যত্ন নিন এবং আপনার যে কাছের মানুষজনের অবশ্যই মানসিক স্বাস্থ্যের ব্যাপারটা একটু খোঁজখবর রাখুন বা লক্ষ্য রাখুন। আর যে কোনো রকম মানসিক অসুস্থতার কোনো রকম লক্ষণ যদি বুঝতে পারেন তাহলে অবশ্যই নিকটবর্তী কোনো একজন সাইকিয়াট্রিস্টের সাহায্য নিতে একদম বিন্দুমাত্র লেট করবেন না।